Hello, everybody. This is Brendan Kenny in Minnesota, Minneapolis area, Shakopee. I know you're asking why on earth is he sitting on the floor? Well, because I have some folding that needs to be done, and we're going to Tahoe soon, and I have trouble restraining myself when I want to talk about something, so I hope you're not terribly offended or bored if I talk a little bit as I do this, as I get this laundry in different places where it's supposed to go. So again, I am Brendan Kenny. I'm a lawyer in Minneapolis, and I'm Kenny Brendan, KennyBrendan, KennyBrendan in on Twitter. And as I said, I'm a lawyer in Minneapolis. I work for a firm on the civil litigation side and do product liability, mass tort, and class action on the defense side. So this criminal law isn't exactly my main area, but I do have some experience and always have thoughts about Undisclosed, Serial Dynasty, and just this Adnan Syed case in general I want to share. About Undisclosed, really great episode following up on the cell phone pings and the background of them, because it really became clear to me as I reread Kevin Urich's Intercept interview. The party line was, well, there were problems with Jay, but we were able to match up his testimony to something objective. And here's what struck me as I was listening to that. And a little bit later I'll get into a personal story because it struck me in a personal way. I won't say qualms of conscious, but just seeing a way I've looked at things in the past and seeing that it isn't the whole story. So what he's saying, I think, about the idea that we have Jay's testimony, and Jay's testimony is right about the main stuff and wrong about the collateral stuff, and he gets to decide what's collateral and what's main, which is a big problem to begin with. And I say that just as a trial lawyer, when it comes to impeachment, I think a lot of people are surprised just how much information is impeachment. How much you can find out about someone's location, what they did, their habits. All of it can come together to cast doubt on their character for truthfulness, or even beyond truthfulness, just accuracy when it comes to eyewitness testimony or what the person observed or what they saw. So almost anything could be material. And for him to just say, as he did in the Intercept interview, well, I looked at what was going on, and I decided that anything that bared upon Jay being there with Adnan was material, and anything else was collateral. It's hard to even know where to begin with that. I'm trying in my head to even fathom what that could mean. So let's back up. So we have someone for whom there's no physical evidence that ties him to the crime. There's no one who allegedly even saw him commit the crime. Jay comes out of the woodwork and said, oh, I know he committed the crime. He told me, I have this evidence, etc. So he's the person. And his word is all you've got. And they say, well, there's problems with his word because it changes. There's several words. There's a different word every time we talk about everything. But what has been consistent is that he says Adnan did it. Well, that's like saying that the prosecution's theory of the case is the only thing that matters is that Adnan did it. Well, no. There's a lot more to it than that. And if Jay lies about specifics, I don't know what. I can't think of a situation where that would go more directly to what happened, because we're stuck with Jay's testimony. The thing is that, and I'm going to complete this thought, is that one thing the prosecution has never said and couldn't say is that the cell phone records alone could get Adnan. So it's not one of those things where you have some really, really strong direct evidence, whether it's DNA or something, some recording, a camera, whatever. And then you have an eyewitness that maybe isn't perfect, but can back it up, or something like that. We have this eyewitness who has the goods on and on, but he needs something to buttress up what he says so that we could believe that at least the binding of his story is true. And here's the problem. Have any of you seen the Staircase documentary? Well, and it's leading somewhere. What I'm talking about here is leading somewhere. Is the Staircase documentary is about a guy who ended up getting convicted for supposedly killing his wife by throwing her down a staircase and some other things. And the what really did him in was there was a forensic analyst, and I'm getting maybe the term wrong, but basically he was a guy who worked for the state. This was North Carolina Crime Lab. And he did tests that said that, well, this is how it went down. This is how the guy did it. This is how he did it and didn't have blood. This explains the blood patterns. This is why he had blood here and why he didn't have blood there. And it was really damning. And well, I wouldn't say it was damning, but I'm saying that the jury bought it. And it was similar, I think, to what apparently happened in this case, where there was expert testimony. And it wasn't that the expert testimony did so much, but it gave the prosecution enough of an opening to tie it together in closing into something the jury could understand. And that's what happened there. That his analysis of how the blood patterns and all that made sense, that the husband could have been the killer, was really key in his conviction. Well, what do they find out in the future as they're going through the appeals process and doing FOIA requests and things like that? Well, they find out that there was a lot of weird things going on at the state crime lab, and that what happened was this forensic analyst, I would say, uncharitably maybe, dummied up a test. His approach that he took to it is he kept working this test again and again till he figured out a way how someone could have committed the crime to fit how the husband presented when the cops came, the blood spit pattern and everything. And then he presented that as what happened. I think that's what Kevin Urich is essentially doing. He looked at the cell phone records in a way that allowed him to come up with one possible universe, one possible world where what Jay says is true. And I am, some other time, going to go through, I think, line by line through Urich's interview, because I was reminded today in Undisclosed just how much good stuff is in there and how much telling stuff. And I think similar to what Bob from Serial Dynasty was saying about expert witnesses, prosecutors are usually pretty smart in terms of what they say publicly about a case. And I think with Urich's it's the same. So he has himself covered for if some more things come out, as they did, about how Jay's story wasn't the way it went down. And he says, well, we have this problem, these people lie, and we just have to kind of live with it and hope we can come up with enough external evidence to show that the gist of the story is true. And one thing I find interesting, and where I'm going with this is, I'm thinking, as I'll talk about a little bit later personally, about how I look at a case and how this prosecutor and these police officers look at cases. And from my own experience, how I see sometimes law enforcement or anyone can look at a case in a biased way or in a way with tunnel vision. And here, what interests me is the tunnel vision focusing on their theory of the case, but their amazing lack of curiosity about anything else. So, essentially they're saying, well, we got this problem with Jay, and we have these cell phone records that tell us something, but we don't want to get caught up in the whole thing and get confused. Let's just focus on what we can know and what will get us where we need to get.